And I've never said this unironically, but I think this will be the first time I actually say it unironically and mean it. Kill yourself.
Kill yourself.
Have you guys tried drinking this shit? It's great.
Possible, like aside from blowing my own head off.
Again, yeah, that's not what I'm suggesting. That is the ultimate, theoretical goal. But I'm saying
that's not a theoretical. No, that's not a goal for me to kill myself.
What's up, guys? It's the Actual Justice Warrior here, and today we're going to talk about an actual justice issue. Oh my god, this feels like the first time, honestly. Okay, so before I get into this case, I want to go over 3 terms really quickly so we have a foundation to build on. The terms are rule of law, judicial activism, and precedent. Now, depending on where you fall on the political spectrum, you might hear politicians talk about rule of law a lot or little. Typically, conservative lawmakers talk about rule of law and the importance of it. You might hear them say things like, "This is a nation of laws, not a nation of people." But the definition of rule of law is as follows: the restriction of the arbitrary exercise of power by subordinating it to well-defined and established laws. The next thing we're going to go over is judicial activism. Judicial activism is basically the opposite of rule of law. This is when a judge, most commonly in appellate cases, stretches the meaning of the Constitution or a law to fit the scenario. There are numerous cases where judges take on a political mission and they rewrite a law in order to make it work in the modern setting. The Healthcare Act is a good example of this. Justice Marshall read what was a fine as written in the law as a tax increase to make it constitutional. However, this does occur in criminal cases as well, and we're going to get onto that later. And finally, there's precedent. And basically, the idea behind precedent is that if it's done before, it can be done in the future. Now, with these 3 things in mind, I want to move towards the controversial Michelle Carter case. Michelle Carter was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in relation to the suicide of her boyfriend, Conrad Roy. Now, many people, when they heard the salacious details of the case, they wanted Michelle Carter to fry for this. Her boyfriend was going through depression, he was in a vulnerable state, and she actively encouraged him to commit suicide. In fact, during his suicide attempt, which was done through carbon monoxide poisoning in his own vehicle, at one point he actually stepped out of the car and contacted her, telling her that he was scared. Rather than be supportive of him, she actually chastised him for being a coward and demanded that he get back in the vehicle. Unfortunately, Conrad Roy did get back in the vehicle, and that's where he met his end. That was in 2014. Fast forward to last Friday, and Michelle Carter was actually convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Now, one of the things that disturbed me so much about this conviction was how many people were celebrating. It was because they don't understand the implications of this conviction. This conviction violates the rule of law, it's a clear-cut case of judicial activism, and it sets a very dangerous precedent going forward. Now, let me be clear, this is not a defense of Michelle Carter's actions. What she did in this case was morally reprehensible. However, as I will soon explain, the implications of her conviction are far greater than this one case. Now, as previously stated, the idea behind rule of law is that every citizen needs to be protected from arbitrary uses of power. In order to be arrested, tried, and convicted of a crime, you have to actually violate something specific in the legal code. So let's look at the charge that Michelle Carter was actually convicted on: involuntary manslaughter. Now, the state of Massachusetts has 2 definitions for involuntary manslaughter. I'm going to read both of them, and you tell me which one you think she violated. Number 1, an unlawful killing that was unintentionally caused as a result of the defendant's wanton or reckless conduct. Number 2, an unlawful killing that resulted during the commission of a dangerous battery by a defendant. I'll give you a few seconds to decide which one you think is correct. Now, assuming that you're comfortable with the English language, you might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, convincing somebody to commit suicide falls under neither definition provided. The first definition has to do with an unintentional killing. Obviously, Michelle Carter intended for her boyfriend to die. That's why she ordered him back into the carbon monoxide filled car. So that one doesn't fit. The second one pertains to deaths that result during an unlawful battery. So basically, this is a physical altercation that gets out of hand and one of the parties in the altercation dies. Well, Michelle Carter was only texting her boyfriend. So obviously she wasn't physically assaulting him at the time of his death, and physical assault did not lead to his death. So clearly something's wrong here. How is she convicted on a crime when a plain reading reading of the text of the law that she supposedly violated shows that she actually did not violate that law. Maybe it was the jury system that failed. I mean, it's not that hard to find 12 stupid people that don't understand the law and get them to vote yes, right? Wrong. This was actually a trial by judge. Michelle Carter waived her right to the jury trial. Judge Lawrence Moniz is the failure in this case. He should have dismissed these charges on their face. It was clear that she did not violate the law that she was being charged with. But not only did he fail to do that, in a sheer display of judicial activism, Judge Moniz actually convicted her on this case. He ruled that she was guilty. And I'm going to read you some of his justification. The judge ruled that Ms. Carter's actions had willed Mr. Roy's death. The fact that she did not order him out of the truck when given the opportunity put him in a toxic environment, which constituted reckless conduct. That conduct caused the death of Mr. Roy. The judge also said that although she wasn't present, she was quote-unquote digitally present, and her text messages encouraging his suicide were enough to constitute involuntary manslaughter. Now look, I don't expect you to feel sympathy for Michelle Carter. Like I said before, it's not about defending her, but I want to talk about the implications of this, a precedent that was just set by this judicial activism. Do you remember the clips I played earlier in this video?
Kill yourself.
Kill yourself. Have you guys tried drinking this shit? It's great.
Possible, like aside from blowing my own head off.
Again, yeah, that's not what I'm suggesting. That is the ultimate, theoretical goal.
Before Friday, all of those clips were protected speech. Right now, according to the state of Massachusetts, all of those clips can be used as evidence against all of those people to convict them on involuntary homicide. You might feel really angry at Michelle Carter and feel really bad for Mr. Roy and his family. You might be thinking, well, this is just one case and she really deserves it, so it doesn't matter. But that's not how the law works. The law works on precedent. And unless this conviction is overturned, we will live in a country where you can't say anything that might lead somebody to commit suicide. Whether it's a joke, whether it's something said in anger, whether you really meant it or not. This ruling opens the door for your speech to become violent. Here's the thing, it's really easy to be a fair weather supporter of free speech, to laugh at snowflakes trying to shut down events because they disagree with the speaker. What's hard and takes real courage is to stand up for your principles even when you absolutely hate the person that's being affected, when you feel bad for the victim and their family. But that's why this case is more important than any speaker being shouted down by leftists. It's more important than any play being interrupted by conservatives, because it's the cases where we emotionally agree that our principles get tested. The ACLU and other legal organizations have filed appeals on Ms. Carter's behalf. Although she's an awful person, and reading the details of this case will really break your heart, her conviction needs to be overturned. Rule of law is about principle over person, and right now our principles need to be more important than Ms. Carter. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. For those of you who are worried about the change in my video format, it's not permanent. What's going on is that it's 97 degrees in New York City right now, and my air conditioner is really loud, so that in combination with the lighting equipment that I use to shoot my videos is just making it too fucking hot. So I decided to go with this format. So if you can't stand it, then please hang in there. If you do like it, then I'm thinking about mixing this in more often, even when it's not scorching hot. If you like this video, then please show me by leaving a like. If you want to join the conversation, leave a comment below. You can follow me on all my social medias here, subscribe for more content. This has been the Actual Justice Warrior. Until next time.